Hey, do you guys want to see a magic trick? Watch this. Now you see me? Now you don't.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Such a dork.
Alright, so anyways, getting into this video, I actually want to share with you 7 dang smart tactics that I've personally learned over time as far as when it comes to negotiating with Alibaba suppliers. So there's a lot of things to know when you are negotiating. Now this, I specifically use this for Amazon FBA. I have a business on Amazon FBA. I'm a seller for Amazon or on Amazon. And these are things that I've learned over time from my personal experience, and I've also picked up things from over time from various other people, which I really honestly don't remember who. Just over time I've learned these things, and I want to share it with you. So getting started, I want to share my number 1 tip here. So number 1 is know your top dollar offhand. So when you're doing research on, say, a specific product that you're looking to buy on Alibaba, already know what's your top dollar that you're willing to spend per unit. So as soon as they get back with some kind of quote for you, you already know exactly what's the most you're willing to pay. So if for whatever reason they come off higher than you're willing to pay, then you don't get emotional about that response or in any sense desperate.
Don't be desperate, just be cool.
In the way of like, oh, well, right now I just need the product and I absolutely, I just need to get it. You don't make an emotional decision. You have to make smart decisions, especially when it comes to when you're negotiating on Alibaba and also to buying products as well. So make sure you have your top dollar in mind. And you might be thinking, great, how do I figure that out? So that's where it comes in. The math. So doing the math. So I don't know your numbers, only you typically will know your numbers unless I guess you share it with me. But as far as your numbers go, make sure you know what your expenses are going to be and also what your profit is going to potentially be. I mean, it's really that simple. It's really subtracting your basically your expenses from what your profits would and should be. And at the end of the day, after all your expenses, do you have a profit margin that A, you're happy with? B, is it even a profit margin? And if that being the case, you find whatever that number that is as far as how much profit or whatever profit margin you're looking for those products, then you can start to figure out, okay, this is the top dollar that I'm willing to spend for the product in order for it to be manufactured and then shipped over. So once you have that number in mind, then that way I believe that it'll definitely be able to help you. My second tip that I want to give you is sort by price on Alibaba. Now on Alibaba, you can actually sort by price. Now, as far as what I'm aware of, you can't actually sort by like lowest price, and as far as like a drop down box or arrow where you can just like drop down and say lowest price, they don't have that. However, they do have a place where you can put in pricing, meaning this is the most that I'm willing to pay per unit, and you can actually use that to your advantage. And when you're doing this, during the time, as far as my experience, I've actually found that it's important to know if you're looking for, a specific item, that you're actually going through the real manufacturer of actually who makes these items. Which you might be thinking, well, isn't that everyone there as far as the people that are making the items?
The answer is no.
And as far as my experience goes, I do believe that there are middlemen in Alibaba, or not in Alibaba, but that also have like shops or stores or whatever you want to call it as considered a supplier at Alibaba. But I really truly believe that they're middlemen, because I've seen it where certain items should cost anywhere from maybe even 50 cents to $1, and I've seen them marked up to like $5 each. And what they do is their minimum order quantity is then less, and so they kind of become this middleman. So they serve people that are looking to get a lot less units and maybe spend less in that sense in a way. However, at the same time too, they're not the actual manufacturer that makes the product themselves. And the importance of this is if you go through the actual manufacturer, there's a lot of advantages, and that's what I recommend too, which is A, you're going to get the item a heck of a lot cheaper than going through middlemen. Second is you'll be able to get responses a lot faster, in the sense of, instead of if you go through a middleman, now they can't, like if you want to customize the item, now the people that are in the middle have to then contact the manufacturer then has to get back to the middleman, and the middleman then has to get back to you.
Huh?
You get that? So there's like that middle spot of you, the middleman, and then the actual manufacturer or supplier. So instead, I recommend you just take that middleman out, and then it's just you and the actual supplier or manufacturer. And that way it's not only going to be cheaper, your communication is going to be faster. Everything in general, in my opinion, is going to run smoother. So I personally recommend just to stay away from the middlemen. That's just my personal experience and my recommendation. Third tip that I have to give to you is always be thinking long term when you're dealing with your suppliers. And that's the sense of always being nice and friendly. Something that I do too, because, there are cultural differences. I mean, being nice and friendly is, respected virtually every single culture. And what I do is every single time I get a message back from a supplier, I always thank them.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Saying, yeah, thank you for this information, or the last message. Thank you for your last message. Thank you for getting back to me. Something along those lines, always trying to be nice and friendly. That's only going to help you to your advantage. And for, if there's ever something that comes up where maybe you're upset about or anything of that sort, I always recommend being professional about it. Remember, you're trying to create a professional business relationship ultimately at the end of the day. And because of that, you have to come off as, of course, business professional. So keep that in mind. So some of the ways that you can do that too, what I mean by business professional is, treat them well, and then also stick to your word too. So if you say, yes, I'm going to have the payment to you by next Tuesday, and say the date or whatever the case might be, make sure you stick to your word and you have that, and you don't pay them a week later. Otherwise, the trust level then goes down, and that's not what you want as far as your suppliers, because again, building a business relationship that hopefully when both of you can trust each other and also work well with each other. The fourth tip that I have to give to you is then start by, when you're contacting them, I would recommend you basically start with a smaller quote. So in the sense of, say, if you want to order 1,000 units of a product, I'd actually recommend you first asking, hey, how much would 250 units be? Now, your first reaction, if you have any experience with Alibaba, might be, well, Brennan, that's nice and all, but what if their minimum order quantity is 500 units? Why I can't ask for 250? That's actually not necessarily true. You can actually do this, and I've done it before, so I know for a fact it can work, which is, even if they say their minimum order quantity is, say, 500, say for in the beginning stages, you're looking to just test out the product, which actually might be true. And in that case, if you are seriously just testing out a product and maybe you're on a budget as well, maybe you can only afford 250 units at the time, then say, hey, I'm just looking to get 250 units. This would be like a test order, see how well the product sells. And then from there, I'd be, willing to then increase the order. So if that's the case, again, remember that you want to stick to your word with that. But then also too, keep in mind that what's important about this is being able to get a price for the smaller quantity. As far as smaller quantity will typically cost you more per unit. But then from there, then ask, okay, so we were thinking about the 250 units, but just out of curiosity, how much would 500 units be and how much would 1,000 units be? That's what I've personally found out to work actually quite well is, they give you a price for the 250 units. And then as you have more, you then start to get then, of course, the smaller the cost simply because you're buying more quantity. So the more quantity you buy, typically speaking, the less you should be paying per unit. Although as a side tip here to give you, keep in mind too, that always keep the shipping cost in mind too. So say if you have a budget of, I'm making up a number, $1,500 to start for some product and whatnot, and have that shipped over to you or to, Amazon or whatever the case might be. Keep in mind that maybe it's $1, or let's just make math easy here. Let's say it's $1 a unit, okay? For whatever unit or whatever product you're buying, and you decide to buy 1,000 units. That's great. However, keep this in mind, which is the more quantity of the items you have, first you have to get that shipped over, which ultimately is going to cost more. Now, typically there's two ways to do that, which is through, by sea or air. Air is going to be always the most expensive, and it'll be typically faster too. But keep in mind too, the more products you have, the more you have to ship over and more the shipping costs will be. So even though that you got 1,000 units for $1,000, 1,000 units for $1,000, that shipping cost could, depending on the weight, size, and all that kind of stuff, that could be easily over $1,000 too, depending, of course, on the weight and size of the item itself. So unless you have something that's super lightweight, thin, and won't take up much space, also understand too that it's possible that shipping cost could end up even being more than the actual units themselves. And a way to find that out is simply ask the supplier as far as, hi, we were looking to potentially order 1,000 units. How much would it cost to get it shipped over to this address? And if you're not really sure if you're say exactly sure what address to use, you can either if you already have a shipping plan done through Amazon, use that, whatever addresses they're giving you. Or if you're really not sure and just starting out, just maybe use your home address and then say, we would like to get them shipped to this address here. It'll still give you an idea of approximately how much it'll cost. And say, yes, so we were looking to get them shipped over here. And what would the price be for shipping it by sea and by air? And then when you get that answer back, you can then make the decision, is it best to do it by sea or air? Again, the advantage is sea is going to be cheaper, but it's going to take longer to get there typically. Air is going to be faster to get there, but typically more expensive. So then it really becomes going back to the math, which is then my first point, which is to kind of know your top dollar and do the math as far as where is it profitable and where isn't. So with that said, then I'm going to go in then to the fifth point I have, which is make sure that you're responding as quickly as possible to the supplier. So that goes back to kind of being professional. Now, I'm not saying you have to respond within the first 5 minutes they send you a message, but what I am saying is don't take a week to respond. Otherwise, what happens is they tend to kind of forget about you if you're not responding quick enough. Now, it's not going to happen over a couple of days. They'll probably still remember, and they still have the history of messages and whatnot. However, if let's say hypothetically you won't be able to check for your messages on Alibaba for whatever reason, let them know saying, hi, just to let you know, or maybe say you're going on a holiday break.
Spit it out already. I'm busy.
Vacation, whatever you want to call it, for this amount of time. I'll be back in the office, whether you have an actual office or just your house. You'll be back in the office on this date. Let them know. Again, it goes back to communication. That's super important. So keep that in mind. And I also recommend responding as quickly as possible. The sixth point that I have is put as many questions possible in your messages. And hopefully don't do it in a way to overwhelm them, but do it in a way of notice that the time change difference, meaning like they're probably on a completely other side of the world, potentially than where you're at. So the time difference is going to be huge.
It's huge.
For me, it's like 12 hours. So basically I have to be messaging them for me at around midnight. So I typically might be able to then get one message from them per day. So for me, if I have multiple questions, I absolutely make sure that I'm putting multiple questions within that one message. Because personally for me, at about midnight, I want to go to bed at that point. That's just me. If you want to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, that's awesome. That's great. You can do that. But for me personally, I want to make sure I have enough rest and all that kind of fun stuff. So for me, I just try to be smart in the messages that I do send, which is send as many questions as possible in that one message that you can get sent off before maybe going to bed or whatnot. And even if you don't want to stay up till midnight, you don't have to. It's just the point of trying to get as many questions in as possible whenever you do decide to send it during the day for you. And then when it's daytime for them, they can get back to you with hopefully multiple answers instead of you asking question by question by question, which could take multiple days instead of just getting all those questions answered within just one day. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
So then my seventh and last point that I want to share with you is make sure that you're reaching out to more than one supplier. And what's great about this is if there's more than one supplier, you can get multiple answers, get an idea of what's the average price. And if you do, I would say maybe get a total of 3 to 5 of them. And from those 3 to 5, maybe narrow it down to 2 or 3 and just say, I've been contacting multiple suppliers. This supplier is willing to offer me X amount per unit. Can you do any better? So in short, actually let them do a little bit of a price war and see who can knock down the price even more. That way you can get an even better price for each unit. So that's a big tip there that people often don't even know about and forget about too. So make sure you're doing that and being smart about it. So ultimately, hopefully you enjoyed these 7 dang smart negotiating tactics with Alibaba suppliers. If you did, definitely make sure to give this video a like. That's hugely appreciated. And subscribe to the channel for more information about Amazon FBA, how you can grow your business, and all kind of fun things like that. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, take it easy.